Welcome to another edition of the Healthcare Executive Talks podcast series, a presentation of Healthcare Executive Exchange magazine. We're located at healthcareix.com. Today's podcast features our final installment in a three-part conversation with Dr. Deepak Kapoor, president of Advanced Urology Centers of New York. This time around, Dr. Kapoor shares his thoughts and insights on why patient satisfaction is so vitally important in today's healthcare market.
The point is that you instituted the cultural change because you removed the barriers. The things that doctors felt that you couldn't do. It doesn't matter what I do. It's out of my control. The game is rigged against me. No, it's the patient is there to see you. They care about you. They care, and the way I tell people is that, a lot of times as doctors, we're in the office and we're seeing a patient and we're finished, and the patient's problem may not be that interesting, or it may be a routine thing, and it may be something that is not that mentally challenging for us to deal with, okay? But and we're already thinking about the next patient and going into the next room.
Right.
But for the person across the room from us, you know what? They may have taken a day off work for this visit. They may have been stressed out about the fact that you're doing a PSA and getting blood work on them. They may not have slept the night before because they're anxious because this is their cancer follow-up visit that for you is just a routine cancer follow-up that you can just bang out without thinking about it. For that person had an enormous amount of anxiety about the brief period of time you're going to spend with them. And if you don't recognize that, and if you don't say, let me acknowledge let me not think about what this visit means to me. Let me think about what this visit means to my patient. And when you turn the tables just that slight bit, all of a sudden everything clicks into place and makes sense. And that's why, like when you look at at primary care visits, for primary care visits, a lot of what I call these softer parameters, the parking, the waiting, they're very important to patients. They're very real.
They are.
But why is that? Because a lot of them are well visits. Right? You're going to renew your medicine. You're going for your annual physical. You're not feeling sick. It's just that this is my time for my checkup. So, it's a bit of a pain in the butt for you to go and do it, but you have to, right? Mm-hmm. But when you go to see the surgeon, the specialist, the cancer doctor, see one of our guys, you're going because you have a problem. Mm-hmm. You have a problem and you need that problem fixed. That problem is disrupting your lifestyle. That problem is causing you discomfort. That problem is causing you pain. That problem is causing you anxiety. What you care about is, how was my interaction with my doctor, and did my doctor address my needs?
Right. Absolutely.
And I have to tell you that something that seems so intuitively obvious was not. This isn't one of those situations. And the other thing is, I had this conversation with a prominent academic physician in New York, and said that you've done this study, and basically you're telling all you found out is that you should be nice to your patients, and what does that mean? I said that's not what we found. And if you believe for a minute that communication is an intuitive skill, well then I'm sorry, you're completely dead wrong. Communication is a learned skill, and it's a taught skill. It can be a taught skill. And understanding what somebody needs for you to communicate to them is something that we can generate through data. So, and how we were able to institute the change from a cultural standpoint is when the physicians were empowered to say, hey, you know what? This is in my control. I can change my scores. So let me I'll give you what I use as my personal example,
Okay.
So the first thing that I did, I scored in like the 89th percentile in patient satisfaction in the United States. So I was feeling like I was pretty good stuff there,
Sure, right.
But in the second quarter, when we released it to the rest of the doctors, I had fallen into the 65th percentile. And I realized that maybe I was taking it a little bit for granted, and I should work on it a little bit. So I started to think, if the patients are interested in my ability to respond to their questions, let me focus on that. And let me remove any barriers that exist, because one of the things in the EMR environment is that doctors tend to look a lot at their computers and not as much as their patients, which is a terrible it's a terrible habit, but it's easy to get trapped into. So one of the things I did is not that I don't look at my computer, but I rearranged the furniture in my exam rooms so that I could look over the top of my computer at the patient. So instead of having the patient to my side and they were seeing my back or my side and the computer,
Right.
I just rearranged the furniture so I could work on the computer and simultaneously maintain eye contact with my patient.
That's all.
Okay,
Wow,
that's one thing. Okay, the second thing I did was I changed what I started saying to patients. Instead of "Good morning," "How are you?" Blah blah blah. I opened every visit with "What can I do for you today?" or some variation of that.
Right.
And instead of just saying goodbye, say hi to your wife and kids for me at the end.
Right.
The last thing I would say to the patient is always, did I answer all your questions, or is there anything else that I can do for you?
Right.
Okay? So I ended the opening and closing to be a little bit more open-ended, to give the patient the opportunity to speak in the beginning and the patient the opportunity to conclude the visit at the end.
Right.
And the third thing I did to make it easier for my patients to communicate, because, normally I do a lot of administrative work. I come in, I'm wearing a nice suit and tie, blah, 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 blah. I stopped that. I dress down in the office. I stop wearing a tie. Sometimes I wear a white coat, but I will wear a white coat because urology, we get peed on a lot. So you can print that if you want, but maybe you should. But in any event, obviously for to protect the clothing and whatnot, I would wear a white coat. But I would dress down because I wanted to remove the barrier that people would feel that I'm talking to someone and they're talking to me from on high. So, little things like I would not stand above the patient and look down at them. If they were there, I would always be seated so I'm at their eye level or below. Just little things, just, in body language to make them feel more empowered. And like I said, stop wearing a tie to reduce the barriers. And with those three changes alone, my Press Ganey scores went from the 60-some-odd percentile to about the 94th percentile. And they have stayed there for the last 2.5 years.
Wow. That is impressive.
Well, what's impressive is not the score. What's impressive is that there is a there's a procedural change that you can make by acknowledging, that you can collect data, you can analyze the data, and based on your analysis of the data, you can institute specific changes in your practice that have an immediate and positive impact on these metrics. And so when you talk about how we were able to, when we talk about how we were instituting these changes for us, the reason why we were able to institute the changes is because it wasn't abstract to our doctors. We created, and in fact, the information, I wrote it up, and it's going to be, I just got the page proofs. It's been accepted for publication. It'll be coming out in the peer review literature, and I think it's being published in September of this year, because, nobody's ever done any of this work before.
Any key message you'd like to kind of communicate that would wrap everything we've set up into a nice summary?
Yeah, I think that as we go forward, the healthcare industry must understand that it is going to be our obligation, as an increasing share of the costs are borne by patients, to recognize that our patients need to be treated as empowered consumers of our services, as opposed to passive recipients of them.
And that concludes another edition of the Healthcare Executive Talks podcast series. That conversation was with Dr. Deepak Kapoor, President of Advanced Urology Centers of New York. For more information on Advanced Urology Centers, please visit their website at AUCofNY.com. That's AUCofNY.com. The Healthcare Executive Talks podcast series is a presentation of Healthcare Executive Exchange magazine. For our latest podcast and articles, please visit our website at healthcareix.com. You can also download our podcast from iTunes, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter for updates on the healthcare news of the day. Our Twitter handle is the @HCIX. That's @HCIX. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, be well.